It's a good, middle-class, educated Indian kind
Academics
of
is
ethic.
looked upon above sport.
Exactly.
What kind of world do we live in?
Yeah. He has no idea how many shirts, how many pants or what he has. But if one of his bats is even 2 grams off, he can tell the weight immediately and say there's something wrong with it. And so many times in Indian cricket it's happened that he's gone there and done that little thing that was important enough to make sure that the other big stars really got a chance to play. He's the Iron Man of cricket.
It's in the air. It's a 6.
Welcome to Century of Stories Cricket, and you're wondering who this good-looking man sitting in front of you is. It's Joy Bhattacharjya.
Well played.
Well played. Let the ball go. Oh, it's actually a googly. You didn't see it coming. But what you will see coming is talk of one of the great legends of the game, I think of all time, no question. One of the great batsmen of all time. One of our better captains. One of our best coaches. And I think above all, one of the nicest people to play the game. And I think I have never heard anyone say anything bad about Mr. Rahul Dravid.
No, absolutely. And, I feel very nostalgic about it because my journey in sport, covering sport, working in sport, started in IMG in 1996. And that was the tour that Rahul Dravid made his debut.
Ganguly Dravid.
Dravid. And I mean, the whole thing about it is that if you see Dravid, I think the one thing you have to realize is that Dravid had the problem that a lot of Indian cricketers will not understand, which is that Dravid comes from a middle class. It's much of a Karnataka thing. Middle class family, educated, academic. So the problem is
Sports is a backward thing.
Yes, and the point is, at what point? So if you've got to excel in cricket, you have to spend time outside. Okay, remember this is the same state from where somebody like a Prasanna goes. At the peak of his career, goes back for 4 years to study in engineering college because, Rahul is from St. Joseph's and then went to St. Joseph's College as well. And his point was that he actually had to make a conscious decision saying, can I make it? Because if I can't make it to a higher level, I can't just... So, like a Tendulkar never had to think. Tendulkar knew from the very start that, this is my
I know
career.
what you're saying. You come from a background where education is uppermost and you can't take sports seriously unless you're really, really fantastic at it. So it's a tough call to make.
And it's a difficult call to make, and that is what defines Rahul Dravid because he belongs to that place where intellect has as much of a part to play. It's a good, middle-class, educated Indian kind
Academics
of
is
ethic.
looked upon above sport.
Exactly.
What kind of world do we live in?
Yeah, exactly. And then he comes and he starts playing well for the South Zone, and actually he makes it to the ODI team before the Test team, and he does well for South Zone. Then he sort of makes it to the ODI team, but doesn't really do well. In April he starts playing, but 1996, but has a few, has about 5-6 matches, but doesn't do much. And then that famous tour, and of course 2 people had to not be there.
For 2 people to enter.
And
Yeah.
with Sanjay and Sidhu gone, it was time for Rahul Dravid and Saurav Ganguly.
And to debut in the same test match and do splendidly well. Pretty rare. And the same 2 go on to be the legends of the generation going forward.
No, absolutely. And if you look at it, Saurav comes in at 3. Dravid bats at 7 because that's the way the order is set up.
Right.
And they get India out of trouble. I think they have a 94-run partnership, get India out of trouble. There's a great story there where apparently before this Lord's Test match, Venkatesh Prasad and Rahul Dravid, who are basically teammates at
Bangalore,
Karnataka, tell each other that, we'll put our names on that Lord's honor board. And Rahul just falls 5 runs short. He was so close to being there as well.
Well, he made up for it. What is it, 36 test centuries or something like that? I mean, it just went on and on and on after that.
Yeah, on and on and on is what I want to say. Nobody has spent more time on the crease as a batter.
He's faced the most amount of balls or time.
More amount of balls, most amount of time. Every record that Alan Border used to once hold, he's taken over. He's the Iron Man of cricket. And I think the great thing about Rahul Dravid, if you look at his career, is how every part of his career, we talk about Ashwin today, intelligently changing himself. You look at Dravid's evolution, it's fantastic. I mean, for a guy whose ODI is not his natural format.
Right.
What does he do? He goes and he gets himself 10,000 ODI runs. Okay. Reinvents himself as a keeper batter. Okay. Late in his career, he learns T20. For 3 years, he does nothing in RCB. He can't do very much with it. Then goes to Rajasthan, rediscovers himself as a captain.
Plays some big shots.
Plays some big shots, changes the way he plays, changes the way Rajasthan plays, they go to a finals. So if you look at the way every time Dravid has been confronted with a problem, he has reinvented himself. When you thought his career was finishing, 2012, he comes back and scores 3 centuries in England. So defining Rahul Dravid is turning around, looking at his problem, saying, okay, how do I get past this one? And that I think is really, really important.
But I think you've forgotten one very important point, if I may, Joy. He was initially coached by a Parsi coach, Tarapur, and that makes a huge difference.
Of course.
Perfectionist, the technique always technique will outlive everything else. And that's why he was able to have a long career also, because the technique never faltered. Overcome conditions, etc. Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you, because if you look at careers of especially players who are very hand-eye coordination players, Viv Richards, Sehwag, towards the end they become more hit and miss.
They struggle.
Hit and miss. Whereas a Gavaskar, a Dravid, they had that, they because their fundamental technique is so sound that they managed to weather through a lot of things. But also the other thing about Dravid is always the fact that somewhere in his career he's always playing second fiddle. Yet, if you look at the total quantum of what he's done,
Unmatched.
It's absolutely unmatched.
Really. Also, different conditions, different status of the game. If you look at all those permutations and combinations, he's unbelievable. Nobody wants to look at it from that angle, but he's unbelievable. He's really not got his due in not just from India. I'm saying everywhere. Rahul Dravid should be right. There's should be second to none.
Yeah, but Rahul Dravid is born in the same generation of players cricket at the same time as Sachin Tendulkar. And I think those are the kind of things that make a huge difference, because, who you play with. And
no, for me, it wasn't the Sachin Tendulkar issue so much as in they would say the best batsman of the generation, Lara, Tendulkar, Ponting. And I would say, no, but Rahul Dravid has to be in that conversation. Not so much India versus India, as against Rahul Dravid is right there with whoever you want to mention.
That's all. Definitely true. And for a large part, he led, 2002 to 6, he was probably the greatest batsman in the world by a very far margin in Test cricket. He's had some purple patches later on also. But I think what defines him is also, India comes in 99. They have a problem. They want to play that extra bat. They start getting him in as a keeper batter. And as a keeper batter...
Whose idea would that have been?
I think Saurav Ganguly always wanted to have that 7th batter.
Yeah.
And I think that 7th batter, because he wanted to have that 7th batter, they figured out that the only way to do it was to have Dravid to keep.
Also, you wanted one solid batsman. Because we suddenly had a whole chain of stroke makers, glory boys if you want to call them that. You needed one or two, which I still think even people say in T20 there's no place for a traditional batsman, etc. But then suddenly you have a moment when it's 6 for 3 or whatever, and you see you do need relatively a traditional sort of style of batting for a little while. We've seen it in Test cricket in the last year. A lot of teams crumbling because there's no traditional ability to stand, bat for long periods of time.
Correct. If you look at it, Pujara is what? Pujara in those ways is Dravid 2.0. This is the next version of Dravid.
I think neither of them like that, but yeah.
But that's what it is. But if you look at it, 99, we talked about a guy who's not picked in the first year of his international career in Test cricket. He's being picked. He's not being picked in the ODIs. In 1999, who is the top scorer of the 1999 World Cup? Rahul Dravid. He scores for, I think, 460 odd runs, 461 runs. And I think that is what tells you that, dude, if that is my job to score runs and hold up one end for India and score at a very decent strike rate, that's what I'll do.
Also, I think he was the best batsman in English conditions. I think the way he was brought up, I think English conditions, the moving ball, I think he played better than anybody else. It may have worked in his favour as it worked against a lot of other batsmen.
And every time that he's done that, 99 he proves himself, 2003 he comes as a wicketkeeper bat. And that series also, he was so important for India. And see, the other thing is that Dravid was always... till he became captain shortly in 2006, he was always the best man. He was never the groom. You know what I mean?
Right.
So Sachin Tendulkar's captain, Saurav Ganguly's captain. Dravid finally gets his chance in just after Saurav leaves in 2006, and he has a pretty decent record after that. He and Greg Chappell actually do some good things. The only thing that went wrong was the
West Indies World Cup. Yeah. But do you think a little bit to do with the personality? And this is not a negative of any kind, because you are who you are. Is it because he doesn't push himself, or when he was a cricketer, didn't really push himself out there that much? He was more low-key and easy-going, laid-back sort of off the field sort of personality. You think, as against some of the more flamboyant characters?
I think it's an interesting thing. He's one of the ultimate cricket technicians. So his wife has a great story to say. She says that, You can pack 20 shirts, 5 shirts. He has no idea. I have to do his packing because I have no idea how many shirts, how many pants or what he has. But if one of his bats is even 2 grams off, he can tell the weight immediately and say there's something wrong with it. And she says that this man is just obsessed with cricket.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it was, that he was technically so obsessed with what he did. He assumed that the selector's job was to select a team, the coach's job is to sort of decide what the strategy was, and his job was to run with it. And I think that's what he did very successfully. And again, as you look at it, it's one match of one Bangladesh match this way, that made the difference.
Yeah.
But otherwise, Rahul Dravid has been fantastic for India. And I mean, most of his innings, sadly, some of his best innings, of course, some of them have come forward, but most of his best innings have been overshadowed. Like the 145 he got, the knock that he played at Somerset against Sri Lanka. I mean, superb knock, fantastic, because Sadgopan Ramesh has got out early for India. What can happen? India is not doing well that 99 series.
Ganguly is on the other end.
Ganguly goes and gets 183, I think.
Ganguly, the man, he gave the title God on the offside, by the way.
God on the offside. And it's another interesting thing that we talk about Rahul, we talk about one of his parents. His father worked in Kisan, so his name
Hence
is
the
Jamie.
name, yeah.
Okay. But I think sometimes we should talk about his mother, because you know what she was? She used to teach. She was an architecture major who used to teach architecture. And who better to construct an innings than Rahul Dravid?
Oh, nice.
So it's a nice way of looking at it. Again, we're talking about 2001, the match, the ultimate test match. Kolkata 1-0 down in the series, following on 4 down. Okay. And then Dravid bats for an entire day. He and Lakshman bat for an entire day. We remember the 280.
I still can't, for me it's like a fairy tale. Sorry. Yeah, it's just
the 281 you
unbelievable.
remember. You don't remember the other side.
No, I do remember the 180, and I think, anyone who likes their cricket knows that there are two people involved in the partnership. It's just, again, the flamboyance, sort of the wristy work, the elegance of Lakshman, whatever you want to call it. Same thing with Ganguly. Sometimes they overshadow because of their flamboyance.
Remember, the other thing is that in that series, the one thing that you found out about Rahul Dravid was there's some steel there underneath. He's this very amiable, good, Marathi
field,
boy
yeah.
of Kannadiga.
Well-bred,
well-bred,
brought up,
polite
no
and all
question,
that.
yeah.
But they pushed him. Steve Waugh turned around and said that, you're coming in, because remember, he came in to bat at number 4. Lakshman was promoted, went in at 3.
Yeah.
And he came in at not at 4, but 4 down, at 6.
Yeah, at 6.
Yeah, at 6
They switched
he came.
positions, yeah.
They switched positions. And apparently Steve Waugh turned around and told him, you're in 6 now, you were at 3, you were at 6 now, next you'll be in 12.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Rahul Dravid decided the best way to answer him is with the bat. And I thought that was absolutely sensational what they did out there.
Personality-wise, I was lucky enough to do a couple of events with him. In fact, more than that for Rajasthan Royals as well. So I sort of, could listen to him talk, etc. Very self-deprecating. Amazing fellow, because we're trying to, the crowd loves him. They're asking him questions about what's your favorite innings, which we will discuss
Wait
now.
a minute, did you do an MTV prank on him, Bakra?
We did that as well. I'll come to that as well. But this is very interesting in Pune recently, last year. And we're trying to ask him about his best innings. And he starts talking about the fact that he once went 50 balls without scoring and how the crowd cheered when he finally did. I was just thinking, it's,
Yeah.
amazing.
If you ask most Indian batters, they'll talk for the next 3 hours about...
3 hours. Yeah, completely unbelievable, the personality-wise. And yeah, we did a prank on him for MTV Bakra. Well, again, I only executed the prank. This was organized by the beverage company that we were shooting the ad film for, which rhymes with Repsi.
That's very difficult. I just don't know what you're talking about.
I don't want to give things.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Legal, man. Legal is important. Anyway, to cut a long story short, and he came out. Please check out that gag. It's on YouTube. He came out with flying colours. We sent a young lady to his room with her father for an arranged marriage, and it's a ridiculous gag. But he held his own. Kept saying, padai karo, and was trying to take. He was so
He's
panicky.
lily white.
Lily white.
that's
He's
the
just perfect man.
Yeah, that is a problem. People like Rahul Dravid give the rest of us a bad name.
Oh my God! They told us later if there was any other cricketer, we don't know how this would have panned out.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you're really lucky it was him, because we never think about what the consequences can be when these things happen.
exactly. If you show it on air and it turns out he did what he did.
But what do we do with it after that? Even if we don't air it, I'm saying once we know this, it's such an embarrassing thing. But totally, he was this Mr. Sharif, Mr. Clean, Mr. Sweet, Mr. Polite, and everyone he talks to. I've never seen him lose his temper, speak down to anyone on a set or at an event or anything else. Very, very, because it's almost like Rahul Dravid doesn't know he's Rahul Dravid. Maybe that's.
I think that's a lovely thing you said, that Rahul Dravid doesn't know he's Rahul Dravid.
Yeah.
I think you're almost there. I mean, he does know, but he doesn't
Just
want to
doesn't
own up
care
to
to
it.
know. He
He
doesn't
doesn't.
care to know.
I don't want to own up
He's
to
supposed to
it.
be a normal guy, having normal conversations with everybody, and he's just the way he treats everyone. It's very rare in such a high-grade celebrity and achiever.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember once doing a event for a quiz show where we were doing the national finals of a cricket quiz. And he's the guest of honor. And like all the guys are going crazy because Rahul Dravid is the guest. And he's like, wow, these guys know so much. And he's admiring. Then I'm looking at him and saying, dude, you're admiring those guys?
Yeah.
These guys are just delighted. The best thing that's ever happened to them is being in the same room as you. And I want to come again, just like that, playing that second fiddle. Again, 2002 England. Okay, and why I want to talk about 2002 England is again, the new ball is very important. Remember, Sachin is batting at 2. Okay, Ganguly is batting at Sachin is batting at 2 down.
Yeah.
Ganguly is batting at 4 down usually at that point in time. But it's Dravid who's coming in at 1 down, who's really deciding what's going to happen because
The ball is moving.
When the ball is moving. So if you see, he scores at least 3 centuries in that tour.
Yeah.
And the most important test is Leeds. So in Leeds, in really important innings, Sanjay Bangar gets 68, which is one of the most important innings played. Rahul Dravid gets a century, and that's the only test innings in which Rahul Dravid, Sachin Tendulkar, Saurav Ganguly all get centuries. But those two, the second Sachin century and Saurav century happened after basically the sting of the new ball was taken over. Basically, Rahul Dravid and Bangar played it out. And so many times in Indian cricket it's happened that he's gone there and done that little thing that was important enough to sort of make sure that the other big stars or the other big names really got a chance to play.
IDFC first fact. Rahul Dravid is the only cricketer to have been involved in 2 300-plus partnerships in ODIs. Interestingly, both came in the year 1999, one with Saurav Ganguly in the World Cup against Sri Lanka and the other coming against New Zealand with Sachin Tendulkar. Let's pause there for a second, Joy. Let's look at him as a captain now for a second. I think as a batsman, undisputed, no weaknesses, something we didn't mention. No, you can't say that short ball was a problem, back foot, front foot, spinning wickets, non-spinning wickets, turners, fifth day play, pitch, whatever. Everything, you put it all holistically, look at it, and you think Rahul Dravid, complete batsman.
Yeah. Interesting. When you say that, no weaknesses, but no obvious strengths that you talk about. Like Sachin, there's a straight drive that you talk about, the Sachin straight drive, Or you talk about Ganguly through the offside,
Correct.
But there's not a signature stroke because he executed all of them very competently. Or it's a Vishwanath square cut. He had them all, but there was no one stroke that stood out for me for Rahul Dravid.
Which is a compliment.
Which I think is a compliment because I feel he had a more rounded game.
All-round canvas and not relying on one. You had mentioned off camera to me that Adam Gilchrist could play only 3 or 4 shots, but he played them really well, and the entire innings was built around that. But Dravid, coached by a Parsi, don't want to keep bragging, but you know.
This is the third time you brought it up.
It's a last of the Mohicans for me because there's a whole generation of cricketers who are coached now hitting the ball in the air, which our generation never did. We didn't play for India, but we all were coached at some point. So I'm saying he represents the last generation of playing technical cricket. I don't want to call myself a purist, traditionalist, the old order changes, we move forward. But it's a bit sad to see that that's not there anymore when you have difficult batting conditions like we've seen in this Australian tour. And then you need a Rahul Dravid to put his hand up.
Yeah, and Rahul Dravid got a couple of his clones to put his hand up for a while. I mean, Pujara and Rahane and all who were very much in the Rahul Dravid mold.
Absolutely.
But yeah, in the long term, I think that's what it is. But it is, as I said, different form of the game, and there aren't enough Parsis around most, sadly.
There's one thing he did not like that much, or I won't say he disliked it, but he's not fond of it, is being called the wall. Because I think we meant to call him the wall, the media, when they did, as a mark of respect because he's impenetrable and you cannot get through the defense and he'll hold India up. But it also sounded like he's a slow batsman, he's a guy who's not going anywhere, that kind of thing. So I don't think he particularly liked that charm.
Absolutely. I think it was one particular campaign and there were about 4 or 5 names given. We don't remember any of the other names given in that campaign, but Rahul Dravid, the wall stuck, and it's something that he has trying to live down all his life.
It's like Dilip Vengsarkar didn't like the Colonel.
Yeah.
People started calling him the Colonel, and he just didn't like it at all. But yeah,
And actually, nicknames stick if you don't like them. Pele hated being called Pele,
Yeah.
and of course, if your friends know you hate being called that, you're bound to be called that.
there are lots of funny stories, light-hearted stories in cricket, but not all of them are light-hearted and funny. Some are quite nasty, just like the forex charges on international trips. They're so sneaky, and because I'm old, I always forgot that they exist. But because I'm also very smart, now I use IDFC FIRST Bank's First Wow credit card, which has 0 forex charges. Captaincy. How do you rate him as a captain?
Rahul is more of a textbook captain. I feel Rahul will do whatever it takes in the exact right steps. So if he solves a problem, he'll solve it step by step by step by step, doing it the way the teacher taught him. I didn't see the flair in his captaincy. I saw technique, I saw very careful cogitation, but that flair of suddenly taking an inspired decision saying, I'm going to turn it, that was not Rahul. And that is why I feel Rahul is the ideal bulwark of the team, the ideal anchor, the ideal best man, but not captain.
Yet there's a bit of a paradox there because a very good coach. You're saying not the best of captains, decent captain, but a fantastic coach.
I think he's a fantastic coach because, see, one of the things that Rahul Dravid brings, what does he bring to you as a player? Preparation, huge preparation. So as a coach, one of the things that he had advantage of was a lot of the other guys don't watch regular cricket. You know, Rahul Dravid will watch any cricket if you show it to him. He can watch cricket 18 hours a day, 20 hours a day. He is actually played T20 cricket with a lot of the current team. Okay, not a lot, but a few of the current team. He's after that coached them in under 19. So what Rahul Dravid brings is super prep.
And he stayed in the present in that sense. He's relevant. He's careful to stay with the game as it moves. But that, as you mentioned from the beginning, was always his game. I will reinvent. I will stay, with the way the times are going.
And exactly that. When people talk about Ashwin in that vein, and I think that, we talk about Ashwin being an innovator because as a bowler, it seems to be more innovative. Rahul Dravid was a superb innovator as a player. He has reinvented himself many times over.
So let me ask you this question. If you had to choose one Indian batsman to bat for your life, is it Rahul Dravid?
Yeah, it would be a very close competition between Sunil Gavaskar and Rahul Dravid.
Okay. We're mixing generations.
Yeah,
That's
but
fair. That's fair.
in this generation, definitely Rahul Dravid.
Rahul Dravid.
It's bad to say that definitely.
So maybe we should have called him the bank and not the wall because he's safe as a bank. I changed the name.
Or you can call him the postman because he always delivers.
But he also rings twice. All right. Favorite innings? If you had to name one, you mentioned 233, you mentioned 180, we mentioned the centuries in England, the innings, century each innings in New Zealand, then I think against Pakistan in 2005.
Yeah, but I'll still, not the 270, I'll go for the 233. Just because 233, it was so important to India. And overseas, when we play outside, Southeast Asian nations, it's a different thing altogether. And I think it was Adelaide was important for Rahul Dravid, it was important for India.
All right. So as we wind this up, let me tell you my story, which sums up for me Rahul Dravid. So I'm actually a decent friendship with a young man called Zubin Bharucha, same surname. So Zubin is very close to Rahul. They worked together in Rajasthan Royals for many years. And when he's in Bombay, Rahul hangs out with Zubin. And they'd gone to Cuff Parade in South Mumbai to Zubin's house. And they were coming down in the elevator. And there was a gentleman dressed like one of us, just in the elevator, who started peering at Rahul. And Rahul gets this all the time. He's Rahul Dravid. And you know how we can, without trying to be obnoxious, you point at the person without saying it, like, have I seen you somewhere kind of thing. He's doing that. And so Rahul says, acknowledges to keep on his pain. No, he doesn't say anything. It's all, gestures. Then as they reach the bottom of the thing and the lift opens, the man says, Sharad, you were in campaign school, no? And no one laughed more than Rahul. He was not at all offended. It was just like, wow, this can only happen to me. So I think, that's amazing, exactly what he said.
Was
about
that guy
him.
Parsi, the other guy?
I can't remember. But
It has to be.
Zubin came back and he was telling us the story and he was still laughing, and apparently Rahul laughed so much because he thought the guy had recognized him, and the guy may have recognized him, but just, for the wrong reasons. Thought he was a schoolmate.
Yeah. Think about it though. Rahul's middle name is Sharad as well.
His dad's name is Cyrus as well, yeah. But yeah, that's just karmic for some reason. So that is Rahul Dravid, and this is Century of Stories Cricket. Joy will tell us more stories. These are all legal ones. At some point in our lives, we will come back and do the illegal ones as well. You have that as well, right?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll see you soon. Before we end this episode, a quick announcement by IDFC FIRST Bank for you to avoid fake advertisement scams. Now, scammers today use ads with logos of banks offering loans or financial services, even asking for prepayments like processing fees. So to stay safe, never make payments or share credentials without proper verification. Avoid responding to unknown ads, calls, SMS or emails with QR codes or links. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Century of Cricket podcast. Stay safe.